Well, guess what?
What up?
Welcome to Pej's Recovery Corner. It's Tuesday,
Nice.
the entire day, right?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Welcome to the corner. This is my friend Randall Patten. He's a good man. We've just became friends probably in the last, probably 6, 7 months, 8 months.
Yep, about right. Sounds
Right.
Yeah, 5, maybe only 5 or 6.
Maybe 5 or 6. And we can thank the pandemic for doing that.
Right, lots
for
of
bringing
things.
a friendship together.
Right, yeah. Pandemic brought a lot of really neat things into my experience. That's for sure.
For sure. So Randall's a deep spirit. I met this gentleman, in certain circles, we'll just say, spiritual circles, if you will. You are in recovery,
Yep.
obviously. I'd like to know more about Randall. Starting like where you're from, where you grew up, where you were born, and then how it all evolved and started. Where are you from?
Wow. Okay. Well, currently I'm from Carlsbad, California, North San Diego. I've been in North County a long time. I was born in Harbor City, I guess Los Angeles area, if I'm right. I don't really remember. I was young. I lived in Orange County and Fountain Valley till I was about 4. And that's when we moved to Vista, actually, California, 1979.
When you were 4?
Yeah, when I was 4.
So you could be 46 or
40. I just turned 46 June 9th. Yeah.
Oh, happy birthday.
I don't thank you, brother.
Gemini, baby.
It's it, man.
That's the alter ego.
Yeah, I got a lot of excuses for all the personalities.
Okay. So, from a very young age, you were down in San Diego.
Yeah. Yep. North County.
Did you like growing up there?
I loved it, man. It was beautiful. It was a great place. It's still a great place. I dig it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. It's peaceful. It's a little bit slower than Orange County and a lot slower than LA. So
it's
yeah,
one
I
of
enjoy
my
it.
favorite parts of Southern California is just San Diego lifestyle. It's a certain type of lifestyle.
Yeah, it's great. I dig it.
Okay.
I really enjoy it.
Growing up in that area, how was life? I mean, as a child, were you a happy child?
Interesting. Yeah, I obviously after going through a program working steps, you get to reflect on all this. I thought I was fairly happy for sure. I mean, I enjoyed life. I had a great time. I played sports. Caught lizards and reptiles all the time with my best friend. My parents divorced when I was 7, so I spent a lot of time by myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I had my best friend from first grade to this day I still talk to. We spent a lot of time together.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my parents, besides being divorced, I mean, they're good parents. I didn't have a lot of crazy chaos in my life, with the exception
of when you got divorced.
7.
Okay, so that didn't really mess with you. It was something that kind of just happened. And
Yeah. I mean, not that I don't really remember it happening at the time. I do remember the timing in life, but I don't really necessarily remember it happening. But I definitely remember growing up with my mom. I saw my dad quite a bit. He lived in San Marcos. We lived in Vista, basically.
So not that far from each other.
No, not within 15 minutes. So he's still part of my life. He didn't bail or anything. He ran his own. He actually owned a convenience store, a liquor store, and spent a lot of time with that. So he worked a lot, but he was around. He coached sports and took me on places. So no, for the most part, my childhood was fairly normal, with the exception, and the divorce actually is probably pretty normal too. My dad owned a liquor store, so it was always, I was told, don't drink, don't do what I do, and it worked for a little bit.
That's what I was going to ask you. So, is there by chance any alcoholism or addiction in your family?
Yeah, I know my father, I think, has 14 years. Actually, in July he gets his 14th year. My sister, she also, I think she has about 10 or 11 at this point. So yeah, typical. It's it runs in the household.
So they got sober before you.
Yeah, they got sober much earlier than me.
So
sure.
When your dad owned the liquor store, was this when you were super young?
Yeah, he owned it. I think he bought it in the early 80s. So I was young. I was around it. My first job was working for him there. So I was stocking beer, and so it doesn't, helping keep that place going. I think when I was 15, I started. So
started drinking?
No, started working there.
I
didn't really start. I drank once or twice in high school. I didn't, I smoked pot like once, and I drank 2 or 3 times. But the first time I drank, man, we was at a buddy's house, and we basically, I remember we pulled out a bottle of, I think it was like scotch. I don't even remember, but I definitely puked, blacked out. First time I ever drank. I remember walking home, going in the tub, just laying in the bathtub. I don't know if I was a freshman or sophomore. I don't remember.
In high school.
Yeah, in high school. And then I didn't drink, after that for very a long time. I worked at the store for a while and didn't drink.
So your parents telling you don't do what we do, like that or whatever.
Yeah.
You listened.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting. I did listen, I did listen for a while, until I hit 18 and then, I don't know, college and just starting to get out and about and getting comfortable. I thought was comfortable in my skin at the time, which included alcohol and going to Mexico with my dad, which now he was, basically we drank together down there. So yeah, it was about 18 when I really started to participate, I think, with alcohol.
And you were finished with school by that time, high school?
I was finished with high school, graduated. Yeah, I was going to Palomar College, community college.
Did you do well when you were in high school? Good student?
No, education in high school level bored me. It was really simple, and I didn't really care too much, to be honest.
Right.
And I got to college and I had like a 4.0 at college when I wanted to go.
And what were you studying in college?
Mostly it was just really my general ed. At the time, I wasn't even sure what I really wanted to do. So it was mostly general ed and just anything interesting that I could take. But I decided to apply myself and actually do everything because I figured, hey, I'm paying for this now. It's something that I probably should get something out of, and decided to apply myself.
Right.
So I was working full time for my dad. I was going to school full time and I was probably partying full time. So I had a lot of drive. I've always had a lot of drive.
So by that time, being over 18 and going to community college, were you living on your own or living at home still, or where?
It's funny we were just talking about this. No, at 18, I was living at my mom's. I met a Persian girl that I ended up literally moving in with her and her family.
That's Persians.
Right. So from like about 18, 19, 20, I actually moved from my mom's house. I ended up ended up staying with her at her house with their family. So I lived with them. So I wasn't on my own. But her dad was a pot smoker, very open-minded person. So, I think between drinking and smoking there and then working at a convenience store and, just kind of evolved,
Right. I know that you and I have talked a lot about, me growing up where I grew up. I grew up in Orange County in LA, and you were down in San Diego. During that time, I think because you're a few years younger than me, probably about 4 years younger than me.
Okay.
But there were these clubs. Did you ever go to raves?
Kind of. And not the smaller ones, mostly bigger ones, Club Rubber events, Pimpin' Hobalt in Vegas, stuff like that.
Yeah. So Club Rubber obviously was like a full-on production. Like you go there. There was a lot of ecstasy. There was a lot of love drugs.
Yep, absolutely.
Like some people hallucinate. Some people do all kinds of different types of drugs.
Yeah.
You were in the club scene.
Not till a little bit later on.
How old were you then?
Oh, by then I don't think I really hit that scene literally until I was probably about 24. In my early 20s, I was still just drinking and smoking a lot of pot. And I didn't even do cocaine until the first time until I went to a Jimmy Buffett concert on 420 when I was 24.
Right.
And then I think that same year is the same year I tried MDMA or ecstasy, whatever you like to call it.
Which was 24 years
old?
About
24 years of age, yeah. That's all.
Before that, when you were drinking, were you drinking alcoholically? Were you...
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
Were you the guy that was getting trash drunk? Like that's the type of drinking you were doing? Were you belligerent?
Man, I was absolutely getting hammered, but my system has always been able to take it. Right. So I hate to admit this shit, but I would literally be the designated drunk driver. We'd go down to TJ to party, and I'd drive everyone home because I'd always be fine.
And that San Diego life, TJ's so conveniently closed. It's like you can go all night long.
Oh yeah. We did go all night long. I'd be up all night driving home at 5, 6 in the morning.
I've had many of those escapades coming back at like early in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd see people falling asleep driving off the road. And it was interesting. So that was a lot of TJ between 18 and 20 for sure. Mm-hmm. A lot, like every Wednesday and Saturday, college night and ladies night, I think it was. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you said you didn't try cocaine or MDMA until almost mid-20s, right?
Yeah, about that, right? Sounds about right.
And what made you get into? Did you get into heavy cocaine use?
Yeah, I did actually. I had a really bad cocaine problem for a long time. It was I was always self-employed entrepreneur, so I was always my own boss. I got into some pretty heavy cocaine use for Actually, probably not later till my early 30s because I was self-employed. I had a convenient. I've always been self-employed, but when I was in my 20s, and I bought my dad's convenience store, and that's 25 liquor store.
You took over.
Took over, bought it, but and I could do cocaine and drink at the same time there. But I also was dealing with public, so I had to be in a semi decent state, which I probably really wasn't and thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
So the balance of cocaine and alcohol and Adderall, Norco, Xanax, Klonopin, you name it. I was also at the time I was on bipolar meds. I don't even remember what I was on, but I was on multiple things for bipolar disorder.
When were you diagnosed with bipolar first?
I probably around that same 24, 25, 26, somewhere in there. So I was medicated for bipolar while I was doing all these things.
Right, and often, I mean, bipolar, it shows itself a lot when people are in their early 20s. Obviously,
Yeah.
and then you throw some drugs and alcohol in the mix too, and it just intensifies it.
Right. I was always more manic up. I was always like, go, go, go.
Right.
I never hit those manic depression ones where I'd be all over the board. But in general, with life, I was always a go-getter. I was hustling. I had a lot going on. I was very successful
Right.
for the material world at the time. I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars in my early 20s already. So
Mm-hmm.
I was making a lot of money. I just attacked life, honestly.
Right.
So my manic came out more in the where it actually materialized in really good ways for a long time. To be
Right.
honest,
Right.
It's very driven.
And when you say you were self-employed, besides the liquor store, was there other stuff that you were doing, like other projects or?
Yeah, I had nurseries where I grew palm trees. Honestly, that was probably. I don't know if I made a lot of money. It was just more something putting money into. But I was in the marijuana industry. I sold a lot of cannabis. I grew a lot of cannabis.
Right.
So I was brokering a lot of cannabis as well. We
This
had
is
gardens.
when marijuana business was illegal in California.
Kind of. We had collective paperwork under the Prop 215 guidelines with collectives and with patients and stuff. So we were trying to do it right, to be honest.
And what year was that about?
Well, if we're going to really get into that, it was definitely prior to that we started. So when I started it, it wasn't that way. So by the time we got to the early 2000s is when we started setting up collective paperwork.
And what you were growing was intended for medical marijuana use, correct?
Yeah, I'll be at the time. Of course, that was what it was intended for, but it was also the excuse we used to grow.
Right.
And of course, the typical. This is what we do to play the system, and and do it. So yeah, I participated in the cannabis industry.
Okay.
For sure, absolutely. At the same time.
And then your 30s looked like what? Like full-blown addiction, alcoholism, or had you calmed it down a little bit?
So my higher power played it funny. He's got everyone you hear him say got a sense of humor. So in my early 30s, I actually ended up in rehab. I owned the convenience store when I was 30. Ended up in rehab. Woke up in the psych ward one day. Went for about 3 weeks through treatment, came out, went to some meetings at Alcoholics Anonymous. Didn't make sense. I think I was probably drinking again within probably about 2 months, if that. I don't think I made it 2 months. I remember going to Catalina Island with my wife at the time, and I couldn't have a good time. I'm over there sober, and it fucking sucked. I had that disease of the mind, that spiritual malady bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought if I sold the convenience store, I'm going to go full time into the cannabis industry, and get out of the alcohol. That I'll be better off not having alcohol around me.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, from when I purchased it from my dad to sold it, values skyrocketed. I came out of it with a pretty good chunk of money and didn't even enter the cannabis industry. Actually, that's when I really entered the full time party rave scene full time, because now I had a lot of money. I was in the cannabis industry, kind of. I was making money doing things, but I didn't have a place to be in public.
Right.
So it was on. It was on from 31 to 36. That 5 years, it was on.
You went to rehab how old?
I think I was 30, probably. Yeah.
You yourself wanted to go there, like you wanted to go to rehab, or did somebody encourage you?
I had a best friend of mine and my wife at the time encouraging me. I didn't really want to go, but I did go. The last 3 days before going in, I don't even really remember. I think between just all the things I was taking to balance my swings of literally, at the time it was probably cocaine, Xanax, alcohol, of course, cannabis, Norcos. I had something for everything. So by the time I got in, I was just I had something for something every hour.
Right. Right.
It was a fucking mess. So I don't know if I even really remember the 3 days going in. I guess I did sign myself into the one facility I ended up at, which was the psych ward, which I don't know if I even knew what I was doing. But the point is I ended up where I was supposed to. But it didn't make sense, honestly. I mean, I got in there. I knew when you come to in a psych ward, it definitely is like an eye opener. Like, wow, am I really that crazy? Like, can I be? And then I'm like, nah, there's no way. I can't be like these people. These people are really crazy. No.
Do you mean the people that were in the psych ward?
Right.
Well, how were they?
What's that?
How were they?
Well, apparently, just like me, I made it there.
But when you say just like you, I mean, on one end, you're asking yourself, I'm not like these people, perhaps.
Right.
But then you realize, well, I am here.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But what did you see in there? Because I've been to the psych ward.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Like when you're in recovery, finally.
Yeah.
I can walk into a room with 100 people that are in recovery, and if I ask them to raise their hands, whoever's been to the psych ward, 80 of them will raise their hand.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
At some point or another, we have some psychotic episode.
Yeah.
Or
Absolutely.
a breaking point where we're like, I just don't know if I can live anymore.
Yeah.
Or we become a danger to ourselves or somebody else, perhaps, and
well,
therefore somebody will 5150 us, or we will 5150 ourselves, depending if you know how to like work the system, right?
Right.
You know, high level of care, but on we go. But I saw things that I could never erase from my mind. I mean, and then again, I was also in a juvenile detention facility in the psych portion. I know, like in a lot of psych wards, they'll usually traditionally hold you 72 hours unless you're a total danger, and then they might be holding you for 14 days.
Yeah, this was through Kaiser, so they put me into a psych ward somewhere in San Diego. I forget. I mean, I know more or less, but I can't. But part of North San Diego by the stadium, kind of. And I think I was in there maybe 4 days or 5 days, and I don't know everyone else's diagnosis. I don't know if there was drugs or if it was just other schizophrenia. I'm not sure.
It could have been like a mixed bunch.
Yeah, it was just a mixed bunch, and then the rehab facility was pretty close to that. I think it was at the same spot, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Maybe I was transferred. I don't really
remember. Maybe they sent you there to stabilize you and then bring you back to the rehab facility.
Yeah. That sounds probably about right. I'll roll with you on that.
Sure.
I don't remember. I don't remember. So so that was kind of my first go around. But like I said, I went to some meetings, after that, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready.
So you weren't ready. So you came out. Did you go right back, gravitate right towards using and drinking again? Remember, this is your early 30s.
Yeah. No, I definitely, the drinking came back, and I'm sure the cannabis came back. And actually, I think it all pretty much came back. I think I kept the cocaine at bay. The ecstasy was minimal before that, but like I said, after I sold the store, then and then all of a sudden I ended up with this big chunk of money and a lot of time on my hands, and no public place to necessarily show up every day, which helped keep me in check, right? Because I got to get there, I got to be there. Then everything really just dumped. So I think 31 to 36 got pretty brutally heavy. And then
question for you: being diagnosed for bipolar,
mm-hmm.
Were they giving you medication during that time?
Yeah, I think this whole time, even in my early 30s, I was. I was, because I was using my Seroquels and my Klonopins and stuff to come down from cocaine. So like I'd be up on all
So
night.
You weren't using it for the purpose of what it was diagnosed. What you were diagnosed for, what it was prescribed to you for.
Absolutely not.
You were clever in the way that you were.
Yeah. I needed my parachutes to come down and go to bed, and Seroquel worked great. And Seroquel, I don't know if I should say it, but I noticed with MDMA, I took Seroquel, and it actually put me on a crazier trip for the last 2 hours before I fell asleep. So that became actually fun. Mm-hmm. So I'm not proud of these things, but these are just my story of what I went through.
That's why I asked you before we even came on, like, are you an open book?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I don't want, if somebody's really personal about certain things that they don't want to talk about, I'll make it a point to make a mental note and make sure not to go over that. But it's okay. I mean,
I've
had a lot of escapades myself when I was out there, and
I
don't like to be too shy to talk about it, because you never know who might relate or might
absolutely
get something out of it.
No, I agree. I actually sometimes now where I'm at with my new observational seat I've been blessed to be given, I kind of feel like, man, I kind of wish I would have had another 10 years in me of just to transmit back more. You know what I mean? I feel like, wow, how come I feel like I got off pretty easy, to be honest.
Right.
To be honest, I mean, I look at my story and understanding now, transmitting what you got and, being of service and taking this message. In reality, I'm like, man, I mean, part of the Sado part of me, which I have a lot of still, honestly, is like, man, I wish I would have had another 10 years party, not for me, but for what now it means to be able to help people through the experience.
Okay, that's great. So you said between 31 and 36, and then what happened after that?
36. I think what happened, my opener is I woke up one morning and there's foreclosure papers on my house that I had no idea what was going on. Me and my wife were both a mess, and she had missed one payment prior, and then couldn't get caught up and didn't want to speak to me about it because she was scared of my moods. So that was kind of one of those first experiences that the universe threw at me. Goes, here, look at this, man. Like, come on. So I'm wreckage. It's like, wow,
being accumulated.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, okay, well, maybe I need to start paying attention. Maybe I shouldn't be doing these things. And of course, then the universe provided me this opportunity to. I decided I got to start focusing. I put it into work, and all of a sudden, all these just unfoldments happened that saved my house. I didn't lose it. It all worked out, and that was kind of when I decided at 36. I'm like, okay, I got to get rid of the cocaine. Probably should get rid of the ecstasy.
So you just quit those on your own?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you said wife. You guys got separated, divorced?
We have been. We separated. We both got sober together. Mm-hmm. We separated last February. I moved out February 26th or 28th.
But during that time, when the house was going to go, but you saved the house, you guys stayed together, mm-hmm. and you were that much of a mess that these things were happening, like that house being foreclosed. So you decided to quit. Any kids?
Yeah, man. Yeah, this is kind of. Yeah, I have 2 kids. I have a son and a daughter that are currently. My son's 20. My daughter just turned 19.
And during this time, were the kids in the mix? Were they at the house? Were they seeing any of this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've seen a lot. On the same time when we were out, doing our partying and being gone for the weekend club scene, they'd stay with grandma and grandpa. So we always had, between my mom and dad being divorced, my dad remarried, then my mom and then her parents. We had 3 sets of grandparents. So they'd watch the kids on the weekends a lot while we'd go.
Well, you guys went out and party.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up, right? But
I know. It sounds like, I mean, if you're active in addiction and alcoholism, well, then as long as you have...
What else do you do?
What do you do? You go party.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course you're going to leave the kid with the grandparents. It's their joy. They would love to be able to see them. And the kids were a lot younger during that time, obviously.
Yeah, and actually the grandparents loved it, and the kids loved being around the grandparents,
So this isn't...
At least we didn't leave them at home by themselves,
Right, yeah, that's not...
I've seen that happen.
That's cool.
That is not cool.
So before that... the Club Rubber days were in your 20s, right? This is a whole different era.
Probably more mid to 20s or 30s, because that's of course, the way everything worked out great for me is being in the liquor store. Coors at the time, the Maloofs on the Palms, and that's where all the big Pimpin' Ho balls were. So
yeah,
the Coors would always cover me for my hotels for that party. So it all worked out great.
I went to those.
It all worked out perfect.
I've got pictures.
Yeah, absolutely.
People just don't know unless they know.
Oh yeah,
that was a hell of an era.
That was a hell of an era. It was a lot of fun, to be straight up on. I mean, it was a great time.
There's a lot of people that will automatically just say, don't do acid, don't do LSD, don't do ecstasy, because those are bad. They'll go in a downward spiral. Mm-hmm. Truth of the matter is, the majority of people that I've known that have done acid, LSD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me included, which I didn't talk about, but I did it, yeah.
They've done it as an experimental thing. It's it's not like something they do regularly. It's not a highly addictive drug that you're like, I've got to have more acid.
No, not at all.
You go on some trips. You do get some people. There's going to be some kids, and I've seen them throughout my life. I'm sure you have too. Mm-hmm. That they just go on an acid bender for a long time. Yeah. And sometimes they never come back from that. They might just fry their brain. I mean, they call it frying. Right? Yeah. So truth of the matter is, like, some of the and I'm writing about this in my book. A lot of magnificent experiences came through me doing hallucinogens. Yeah. Came through me doing ecstasy. Oh, some of it I can't remember anymore. Because because obviously when you're in that different realm. Yeah. But for the most part,
Yeah, I agree.
We had fun.
Yeah.
And during the 90s, if you're going to raves or you're going to clubs and things like that, unlike, I don't see a bunch of heroin addicts.
No.
The only place they go is to like a shooting gallery, if there is one.
Yeah,
they go shoot dope, right? And then you never know who's going to survive or die.
No. Yeah, the whole rave, that whole MDMA, whatever, ecstasy. And really, if anything, it was love, acceptance.
There was a lot of love.
There was, and it was a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. It was a beautiful, people were people, everyone dressed. It was just all about enjoying life, the experience, and using something that, I guess stimulated that experience for the evening, and honestly, and I think the only time I didn't drink for a lot of years was when I was on MDMA, because you don't want to touch alcohol on it for
Right, you
some
don't
reason.
mix the two.
You don't, you just, there's no, you don't even want to taste it. It's just,
Right.
it's gone. So it's interesting, but
It's really interesting now that I've been sober almost 14 years. Tomorrow will be that day.
I know.
I have
Congrats.
gone to, we created a thing a few years back in the rave scene for a sober movement, so that sober people that still love the electronic music
I
and
love
stuff
it.
can go, and they have their own tent, and they have their own meetings. They don't call them 8 or 12-step meetings. They just have a room where people can go and enjoy the music, and then go back and retreat and have little meetings and like be amongst each other and speak with each other. And you see this some kid that's sauce that comes in there and he's like, "What do you guys got going on here? Can I hang out?"
Attraction, not
There's a whole bunch
promotion,
of-
man.
There's a
You never
whole bunch
know.
of candy and stuff. And usually, like we ask that people that come to it have at least a year of solid sobriety, so that it doesn't like put them. But anyway, so I went to this like a few years back. It was a huge festival in Vegas, and I remember just
EDM, or I'm sorry, EDC,
EDC,
Electric Daisy.
yes, EDC, yeah. And I remember like the next morning walking outside and just seeing a lot of people looking like they're just worn down and everything, and I thought, oh, this is what they look like the next day. And I was sober, so I got to be like, I got to see it
Your
differently
clarity,
through different goggles, through
Right.
different vision of
Yeah.
what I used to enjoy back then. Because back then you do ecstasy all night long.
Yeah.
Well, the next morning I used to like do some meth to just kick it back in again.
Keep going, yeah.
And I remember just being up for so many days and so many hours, going to the after party, and
Yeah.
then the after party after the after party, and seeing like the way people always look really beautiful. That it definitely would enhance my mind. But here's the problem that I had with ecstasy, and I don't know that everybody has this problem. Every time I did ecstasy, I threw up.
Really
Yeah,
interesting.
and then it would kick in. And then also the problem with ecstasy is that it would deplete the serotonin in my spine.
Yeah.
So I remember there was usually if I had quit doing ecstasy like on a Sunday, by Monday I'd be coming down really hard and kind of just in a fog. And Tuesday I'd be really depressed.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Yeah.
And so that's the downfall. That's the side effect, I believe, of ecstasy, is that it can put you in suicidal ideation mode, which then again makes me realize I'm happy I didn't kill myself over it. But I did a lot of ecstasy. I mean, I did it all throughout the night.
I did a lot, yeah.
A lot of it, almost every single weekend.
Yeah.
And again, we're not trying to glorify the drugs,
right.
or any drugs for that matter.
Yeah.
But the point is that back then, there's a craze right now. There's a lot of kids doing opiates, and tons of it, just tons of it, and they're dying. Fentanyl's a major craze. And so, in comparison to what we were doing back then, I don't know that the kids these days that become full-blown opiate addicts got to experience what we experienced back then. Not to say any of it was better than the other.
Yeah. It's interesting. Especially, I guess when I was a kid and doing opiates, I definitely did some pharmaceutical. Norcos was kind of my thing, just Norcos, but I didn't do a lot.
Right.
Some Oxycontin, a little bit, chew them up, just a little bit, nothing heavy. But yeah, apparently, and from what I hear now, obviously these fentanyl coming over from Mexico and stuff. That's
you never know.
I've heard stories lately. But yeah, it's you never know, man. Right? And that's the whole thing. So
you got into your 40s. You got sober at what age?
40, maybe 42, I guess it was.
42. You're 46 now, but you got 3 years of sobriety, right? A little over.
Yeah, August 26th to 17. So I don't really. I'll be honest, I don't really keep too much track. I'm a big firm believer of one moment at a time.
Okay, great. Why did you get sober? What was like your crisis?
Well, my crisis, my dark night of the soul, so to speak, was starting a company with a brother-in-law. Very successful company. To this day, it's still very successful. It was the first time I was able to be held accountable. And this is a brother-in-law that's married to my sister who's in the program. So, that being said, it was the perfect storm, honestly, of a lot of things. It was all my shit. It was honestly, the experience I needed in life to really finally reflect on myself. So it was perfect. It was just all my shadows that come out. So bottom line is I started the company in 15 or 16 about. And then by 17, we were going pretty solid as far as operational. Everything was going good. And I just found myself in a position that I'd never been in, as far as having to evolve and grow in business, getting out of my comfort zones. All beautiful things now, but at the time, I just didn't have the life skills to do it. And my only solution at the time was kind of going back to drinking quite a bit. I didn't go back to the drugs, but I was definitely, the last couple months I was there, I started drinking pretty heavily again, because I just was frazzled. I was just done. I was just, I had sleep apnea. I was traveling a lot around the country. We raised a lot of money, a lot of things, stressors that I didn't know how to handle. And so it was actually the perfect experience, man. Finally I got to a point where I knew I was done. I actually was going to go to them, my brother-in-law or whoever, our VP of operations at the time, and be like, hey, I need it on this Friday. We were filming a national TV series that we were doing on Thursday. So on Friday, I was going to go to them and be basically ask for time, just say I need to take some time off. And of course, I got what I wanted. I just didn't go ask. They came to me and put me on medical leave. So, but at that time, I just thought
you went to treatment.
No, they just put me on medical leave. So when I got off, the first thing I did was I didn't, they mentioned to me, my sister and brother-in-law ended up coming out and saying, maybe we think you're drinking alcoholically, which they knew. So I got put on medical leave. But when I went home, I ended up going back to the house with my wife and kids, because I was up in the desert in Coachella Valley. There in San Diego. So I went back to San Diego, and I think about it, I knew I was in a bad spot. I knew I had things I needed to do. I knew I had sleep apnea bad. I needed to take care of. I knew I needed to go to a doctor. I hadn't been to a doctor for a while. I was 255 swollen, right? So I ended up buying a bike first, because I knew bikes were always, I used to mountain bike a lot. I used to race downhill when I was younger. So I bought a bike. I got my doctor, went and got my sleep apnea taken care of. So that was March 24th. I got put on medical leave. So over the next 2 months, I started taking care of my things, started going to one of my counselors that I'd been seeing for marriage counseling before. So I was seeing her individually. She was actually kept suggesting I should do a 12-step program. I had tried to quit drinking, and I had it kind of in check, a little bit. I was only drinking maybe once or twice a week, but it was still, I still had the disease of the mind, the obsession was not removed. I mean, I still had the obsession. It's still, alcohol tasted like shit, but I couldn't not drink it. I couldn't go to sleep, but I had to drink to sleep. It just, I was just discombobulated. So then in June, I had a meeting with my brother-in-law, which he ended up letting me go to the company. And that was really the last little experience that my soul finally goes, wow, man, maybe you do have a problem. And so I think I started going to the program maybe in June, probably, or July.
So you didn't actually go get detoxed from the alcohol?
No,
Did you have seizures or anything like that?
No, nothing.
You
No.
are an animal.
Yeah, my body's super resilient, man. That's always. I mean, I'm talking, dude. Even at those, I'm not bragging, but I mean, I'd be at those, and I'd be on like literally 20 hits of X. I mean, I don't know how the fuck I never died. I don't know how I never died. It blows my mind. I guess my energetic system can take some shit,
I guess so.
Doesn't mean I'm proud of it.
So you started going to meetings, but besides that, I mean, during that time, did you just make an absolute decision that you want to stay sober, or were you still leery? Like, were you still on the fence?
Yeah, no, I was still on the fence, and June, July, I was going to some meetings. I knew I needed to try something. It was the last thing I had. I was at that gift of desperation. And then in August, I mean, I was going 1 or 2 a week, I think, if I remember right, because I remember telling my counselor, I'm going to a couple a week. And then I guess it must have been August 25th was the last time I went out. And I was invited to the Del Mar racetrack for races with VIP seats, and Slightly Stupid was playing. So I ended up there, and the whole time, I couldn't look at the horses. I was just watching everyone drink because I didn't want to drink, but I was around it, but that's all I could focus on. And then of course, going to Slightly Stupid, everyone's smoking pot. You want to smoke pot, it smells great. And I made it through all that without touching anything. But then we went, that night was I think it was Conor McGregor and Mayweather fight. So we went to a party for that, and I just started pounding the vodkas there, and drove home, not remembering driving home. woke up in the morning and with the gnarliest hangover, and the fact that I don't really remember driving home, and already with a little bit of meetings in me, realized that's it, man. I got to do this. And
Surrender.
I finally got the gift of desperation, or surrender, to a way that I just was cracked. It was all I had left, you know?
Very well. So then you just stayed sober.
Yeah. After, so I started, that was August 26th was that day. I decided I started going to meetings every day. My higher power, somewhere in there, I was still pretty discombobulated, but I don't know how I got so fucking blessed, to be honest, with this shit. Somewhere in there, my sister called me to see how I was doing, and I was super stressed. I had no money. You know, I got let go, and she's like, "Well, let me talk to Adrian about buying some equity from you." So they ended up buying some of my equity from the company. I'd like some enough I got a check for a year. So I had a check coming in. But I think looking back, I know my higher power was like, dude, you're going to the meet, you're sober, you're working on yourself. I'm going to pay you to focus on yourself. So I didn't get it at the time. But the bottom line is all my bills are covered. I didn't lose all my shit. I didn't lose my stuff. I literally had a check showing up every month that paid all my get by number. All my stuff was taken care of. And I focused on meetings every day, riding my bike, reading, meditating.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to get to. I already know that you got involved in the meetings. I know you got involved in the 12 steps. That's outside of that, though. This is what I get from you. This is what, like, one of the things that attracted me to you is, as a brother in recovery and just a human, like, spiritual being that we kind of we vibe.
Yeah,
We vibe
absolutely.
together
Yeah.
very well.
Soul podding.
And what I really like about you is that when you speak now, when I've heard you talk, um, there's certain people that are on a different wavelength, a different frequency. Like it's a
Fourth dimensional consciousness.
it is fourth dimensional consciousness, and it's not like we all just get like that. I know a lot of people that are in recovery, and I'm not saying that I'm that way.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is that I tapped into something greater than me, which I believe is God. That's just I deeply believe it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are on the fence with the God idea. I was on the fence with the God idea. I went from being
I still don't call it God.
yeah, I do.
I don't have a problem with any of it.
I do,
I
and I used to not call it that for a long time because I got really hung up on the wording, the word. Yeah. But it's more than me, and it's godly. So
yeah, absolutely,
it's a creator. But my whole thing is when I would hear you speak and talk, I thought this guy's not only obviously you can tell he's read a lot of books, right? He's well read, well versed, and uses a lot of words that are in direct correlation and relation to spirituality. He's a very deep spirit, and he's not speaking from a place of being conditioned. Uh, he's allowed his consciousness to think outside of the box, and when he speaks, he talks from his heart rather than from his head. Right? Like there's not a whole bunch of ego that I ever hear coming out of your mouth. Like you're definitely you've tapped into that oneness, and it's a very beautiful thing to witness. So I love when I see people that are in the recovery process, or even that are not in recovery from substances or alcoholism or mental health process. People that have that are deep spirits that really are on that frequency, and they flow when they talk. They're not in victim mode. They're not thinking that that the world owes them. Everything is such. It's just the way it is. You know what I mean? And they're okay with that. And I get that from you. And so, how did that come about? Were you that guy before you got sober, or when you got sober? You said you were reading a lot.
Yeah, interesting.
And I don't think it all just comes from books.
No, if we're gonna go truthfully on what I feel is, I do feel that I could cry talking about it, to be quite frank. It's I guess just to speak from my heart and be the to let it flow out is I do believe, I don't know, and all the things that we read about is it took many lifetimes to get here. And I don't know why this lifetime it appeared, but I'm grateful for it. I mean, it's nothing but gratitude. Like I said, I look at my recovery in my life. Even in my early 20s, I used to tell everybody I live in a movie. I said, this shit isn't real. I said, this is not real. This is like dream. It's
Right.
a movie. And I've seen this reality very interestingly for a long time. How things work, and just they always work out, so to speak. And then I forgot I lost it for a little bit. And it's a trip because after I walked into the program, something literally just told me to start meditating, and like, no bullshit. I was meditating sometimes 6-8 hours a day, and I don't take credit for that, and I'm not sure why, but I did. I'd sit on my tree, or I'd go ride my bike, and riding my bike to me is meditation. That's where I'm tuned. I'm just stunned. And I think we don't hear about it a lot in program work, or at least I haven't, but our mind, body, spirit. And for me to get back into my body, I was riding my mountain bike as I was going to meetings, as I was reading, as I was meditating. I was riding my mountain bike 500 to 700 miles a month at least.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a couple hundred miles a week. And so literally all I was doing was working on myself. But even that I don't take credit for. Like, I don't, like, something just kicked in on me that all of a sudden it was time to wake up, and it was time to find myself.
What do you think that something is? I mean, I know you don't call it God, but why do some
Consciousness?
consciousness, and where do you think that came about from?
Consciousness?
Yes.
Are you really answering me these? Asking? Okay.
Yeah, I'm asking.
Where? I don't.
I'd like to hear your experience. Like, what happened? Did you just one day it just came to you?
Yeah. So
Was
you've
it
heard.
gradual?
No. It was a flash of light. It was literally December 21st, winter solstice of 17. So I was only 4 months sober.
Mm-hmm.
I know we call it spiritual awakening, but I call it Kundalini awakening, whatever. And literally, everything made sense. It just happened. Just.
Why do you call it Kundalini awakening? What did you learn about Kundalini?
It's a great question. I don't even know. I think at the time I decided to start really diving into searching for it's so cliche, but it was the typical who am I, why am I here, then whatever the other one is, honestly.
You start to question yourself in life, and what is your purpose?
Well, I started to look, and I started to seek, and some of the first things I found, I was like, no way, I'd never tell anybody this shit, because it was very personal, to literally go down these wormholes and end up at myself. But that being said, literally just that by December 25th from that day, my head was like a nuclear reactor went off in my head. It was on fire. I mean, my whole body was just lit up.
Do you think that day is the day you were emancipated?
21st, 22nd. Yeah.
From your head and everything that was going on.
I think it was when all my chakras lined up and connected, and my crown chakra opened up, if we're going to talk about that kind of stuff.
You can talk about that stuff.
Absolutely. So to me, that's what I correlate it to, the stories. I mean, if we look at the Christians in the Bible, it's the 7 crowns. To me, it's chakras seem to make sense. So, and that happened to me. And then all of a sudden, everything made sense. It was perfectly clear. I understood it all. But then it kind of went away for a little bit, and then I had to reintegrate back into it for a while. So it was a flash of light. At that point, I was going into meetings, and I got what those meetings were, and hearing everything that was guiding you.
The planets had aligned, and
everything was aligned.
The sea was parted.
Oh yeah, completely.
So did you?
And so I don't know why that happened.
Oh, I do know this. Obviously, you go to Yogananda's place down in San Diego, right?
I did. I'll go. I went and checked it out a few times. But they start calling him the master, and they lost his whole teaching. So right. I don't. I once they. Like I said, I went to Self-Realization Fellowship a little bit. I go to the Meditation Garden, but I went to a few of their actual events, and they started calling Paramahansa the master. And if you read his writings, the master's within us. So, we are our own master. And once we put it on anything outside of ourselves, now you put it on something outside of yourself, and it's not outside of us.
Right. No, I understand that. I get what you're saying. I kind of had the same feelings when I went to the ones up in the Palisades, and even the one over in, I think it's North Hollywood.
Yeah.
I think he had good intent. I do believe that there's a lot of spiritual teachers that
Oh, he had it. The Paramahansa was an instrument. I mean, he was a wide open instrument. His message is there. They just
Right.
lost it again,
A lot of people lose it.
which seems to happen when the truth comes out through a certain instrument. Somehow, eventually, with a little bit of what appears as time, the message gets a little bit lost or twisted. It appears sometimes. I don't know. I'm just taking notes still, though, so I don't know.
Do you believe there's a difference between philosophers and mystics?
Um, no, I believe that there's one creator that manifested himself into many different pieces, and for some reason, many human minds need to resonate with something to get there, but they're all
Do
the
you
same
think
thing.
all human minds are capable or are mystics? Can be mystics?
Capable, possible. It's possible.
What do you think blocks some people from tapping into their deep mystic mind?
Human condition, things that have been placed generationally on the human soul that I know we call it disease or sick well. I call it forget, remember. We forgot who and what we were somewhere along the way, and then we were conditioned into this construct of the mind that only exists because you believe in it. And once you quit believing in it, it goes away. But that's what we were taught. That's what we were born into. Like I said, I say, we were taught to be in competition or, in a dualistic world, a third dimensional construct of mind where everything's separate and apart. It's having to be better than, it's having to compete, and in reality, that's, or I guess I could say it in the way we think the outer world is separate from the inner world, and that we're not a part of everything in our world, but in reality, it's an illusion. That's, I guess, the veil with it.
Illusion.
Illusion.
Everything is an illusion.
Indeed.
It is correct?
Absolutely. I mean, it's real. It's here. It's an experience, right? But it is an illusion of mind. I mean, it's all mind. It's a construct. I don't know.
I've often thought that the difference between philosophers is that they philosophize, meaning that it's theoretical, and theory is not factual.
Yeah.
And that means it comes from the thought process, and usually the thought is from the mind. In comparison to a mystic who comes from the heart.
Okay.
Not to say that you can't have philosophers that have tapped into their mystic side and actually come from the heart. A lot of them, I believe, many philosophers say what they say with good intent, but when it's a strong opinion that was, I believe, based off of conditioning because of what they were taught from certain schools of thought, then a lot of times when they're hell bent on thinking one way, then perhaps it's egoic and then there are some philosophers who, like Socrates, that says, the only thing I know is that I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I hear your point. I guess
Like the reason I say this is this. That's between mystics and philosophers, right? When I'm in recovery circles and recovery rooms, this is what I hear a lot of times, and I think it's conditioned. Like people are conditioned in the recovery process because they hear other people say it. They think that that's what they have to say. They say, I don't know why this thing works, but it just works.
Yeah,
I know why it works.
Yeah.
I know exactly why it works.
Right.
There's a 12-step process. If you go in the 12-step world and you work through the 12 steps and you completely surrender, then that's why it's working.
Well, it works if you work it, right?
There's a chapter in one of those books that says how it works. So why would you say that I don't know how it works? Or, when somebody says I've had the worst year of my life, or for whatever reason that may be.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me that your entire year was the worst, or there was certain moments that you milked?
Well, it's perception, right?
It's perception.
And they also, and it's unfortunate, because I always say this, the worst thing that ever happened to me was the best thing that ever happened.
Sure.
But it takes a while to get to realizing that the human experience is really about. I don't even necessarily care for the word spiritual anymore.
Yeah.
It's a conscious evolution,
Sure.
expansion. So how do we expand consciousness, right? I mean, some call it suffering, but the experiences that materialize that make us more one with source or with creator or with God or with the universe,
Right.
So
every tragedy,
the only way we surrender
every so-called tragedy has a blessing.
They are a blessing, but and you posted this recently, or there's something, about the storm. Well, the universe is the storm. It's just you pushing itself closer to center with an experience to make you surrender, to be whatever it is you need to go through. And I do believe we all have different experiences why we're here to we need to go through for our individual experience. So when you bring up the philosophers and the mystics, I think the philosophers, that's a realm of mind. They try to think and they try to frame it. I think the mystic just accepts it and becomes it.
It becomes it.
And you
That
just
oneness is within.
Yes, and you just become it, and it's really love and acceptance and forget and realizing that it's just a construct of mind, but you don't have to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you try to understand it, the more you don't understand it.
Yeah. You had mentioned that it all came from a creator. Obviously, you don't call it God. However, sometimes
Don't get me wrong, I use the word God regularly.
Sure. And the reason I say this is I want to ask this question, and we might be dragging this out, but one of the reasons I wanted you on here is because I love having meaningful conversations with people that share similar values with me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like when me and you were drinking and getting sauced that, if we did a lot of methamphetamine, we could have these types of conversations, but they might go in circles or they may be nonsensical.
Yeah.
But when we're sober, in a sober state of mind, we're able to actually tap into other qualities of our thought process, where our heart flows, and have these types of thoughts.
Absolutely.
So when you speak of the creator, is that creator absolute to you?
You ask good questions.
Is there duality or is it absolute?
No, well, duality is part of the experience. You have to have contrast and you have to have duality for this experience of life, but I believe it's absolute.
Absolute.
Actually, I would say I know it is.
It's infinite.
It's probably, well, I think it's always evolving and entropy is always lowering, and the only way consciousness evolves through experience. And I don't know, man. It just gets to a point where you just don't know, and you don't need to know, and you just accept
whatever
your
it
role.
is. Doesn't probably want us to know exactly.
No, exactly.
But also gives us the choice to make different decisions for ourselves based upon how we live our lives. Because animals live instinctually.
Yeah.
But humans have the choice to make the right or wrong choice depending.
They do for a while, and then I feel you get to a point where you realize they're so clear to live. If you're going to live righteous, or you're going to live on this, the choices kind of show themselves.
But the ego never goes away.
Why would you say that?
I have a spiritual teacher that tells me on this earth, there are only a few human beings that actually shed their egos completely. Okay. I asked, who are they? He said, nobody knows. Ego never really goes away, although if we become aware of it and we tap into our soul, we distinguish between the two, and we can live through our souls, which is actually, for me, these are just my beliefs. It is the only way to go. Unfortunately, greed, money, all the 7 sins could definitely kick in depending on what happens or where I am or who I'm around, or it can come in many different shapes, forms, and sizes. It can be a relationship, for example, where I think I need to be in a certain relationship and I think it's perfect, and the way it's dressed up and how it looks and all that, this is it, I'm totally set on this, and then all of a sudden something will happen between us, and when it doesn't work out, I realized that perhaps it was my ego that was my driving force to making me be convinced that this was the one and that's the way it needs to be. And this is just an analogy.
Yeah, no,
it could come with many different things. It could come with.
Well, it sounds like these are all the attachments, and things
to the third dimension.
Right. With this illusion of separateness, right? So, in a relationship, well, your relationships with yourself, and that's all this program's about, is yourself, and this loving yourself, accepting yourself, forgiving yourself. All these things are about finding myself, and then once you can do that with you, now you can transmit what you have, because now you have it, and then you're able to do that for everyone else in your experience, right?
Sure.
Because you see where they're from. Nobody wants to be an asshole. Nobody wants to feel good. Nobody wants to hate. And that's why the Bible tells us, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. So, and at the end of the day, anything that reflects back from me, like in a relationship, is what it is. It's
part of the experience.
Part of the experience. And then if it dissolves, that's beautiful, because it's not a beginning, that's an ending, because now I've just leveled up or expanded. So I think if we really live the Serenity Prayer, which to me, and this is where it just is a prayer of non-attachment, if I own nothing, nothing owns me, and so any of these things that come in, they come, they go, they ebb, they flow, they might leave, that's cool, but they're fleeting. The only constant in the universe is change. And for some reason, as humans, we don't like it. We like to get comfortable and complacent. But in reality, you're going to stop growing and expanding as soon as you stay somewhere too long, right?
Absolutely.
So none of it really matters eventually.
Well, it's interesting. What happened to me where I felt like I tapped into something much deeper, and it happened probably about 3 years into my sobriety. I mean, I felt like I'm on this path almost immediately. Like I want to be sober, and I'm going to do this, and I'll do the work and all that. And I know, and I read a lot of wordy books. I was into tons of books to expand the mind and to expand your heart and expand your consciousness and all that. But I was driving over a hill, listening to some music. I rolled down the windows. It felt like that particular day the air was perfect. It came through the car. I was playing Led Zeppelin over the hill and far away.
Yeah.
And I just remember in that very moment, the way the music sounded and the air was flowing in the car, and the way I felt within myself, I was like, I am in the moment right now, and I'm cherishing and loving this moment.
Yeah.
This is a perfect moment, and that is where I realized that I need to live in the moment every single day and just be with the moment.
It's never not now, man.
Marvel in the moment. I don't need to go forward. I don't need to go backwards. I don't need to suffer and be depressed about what's happened, and I don't need to be anxiety ridden and future trip and wonder about what's about to happen.
It's already taken care of, bro.
Taken care of.
It's all done.
It's perfect the way
Perfect.
God, universe, creative intelligence, whatever you want
Highest
to call
self,
it,
whatever
has
you
made
want.
it within itself.
Yeah, it's a beautiful spot. It's yeah, it's amazing. All these things we try, fear, stress, anxiety, they're just an illusion. It's a trip. And once you're blessed to have them removed, they'll try to creep in. Things come in now to like try to bring me back into the world and go, oh my God, what's wrong? And you just sit there and laugh and you ignore it. And really, that's why when we cease fighting everyone and everything, it all eventually dissolves.
Yeah.
So when I quit fighting alcohol, it went away.
You're such a good man that I can almost. I mean, obviously, knowing you now, like it's hard to imagine you being, hammered all the time. But wow, what a different guy you are. This is a different life.
Yeah, this is can't believe it's real. That's the most amazing part.
But is it? I mean, is it?
Well, I mean, yeah, right. That's where it's a fine line, right? Yeah, it's a dream. Yeah, it's an illusion. But the reality is we do create our reality. And if I am going to be an instrument to leave the world a better place, you do have to take it serious. I mean, this is where it's everything's an oxymoron. It just is. It's like, take it serious enough to be your best, but don't take it serious enough to give yourself a hard time. It's like everything just becomes this. It's an oxymoron. This whole world's an oxymoron,
Right.
And it's like, don't take anything so serious. Just go with the flow,
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, it all works out. But also don't limit yourself. Don't cap yourself. That's why when I say the word spiritual, I don't claim to be spiritual. I don't claim to be religious.
Yeah.
I don't claim anything. I just live my life and enjoy the experience. And if there's one word I would say, I guess it's try to be love. And that's not even try to be. I think eventually
be love.
You be love. You become
you
are love.
So
right?
love.
Exactly. And as an instrument, you can't give the love that God uses you to give or project, right?
Or whatever that thing is.
Or whatever
you want to call it.
I just don't think you can describe the undescribable.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I do think we have a lot more power than sometimes we learn in the 12-step. We're power. No, we're extremely powerful.
We gain back our power. A lot of people get hung up on the powerless thing. They think they're powerless. No, you gain back power.
Oh yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah. It's amazing what surrender and these words that make you seem so weak apparently become very powerful.
Sure. Well, it's been a joy to have you on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, brother.
At the corner one day.
Yeah, I like the corner. It sounds fun. It's always a blessing to be able to share things, man.
We are going to sign off. Thank you all. We will be back. By the way, I'm going to be having a podcast on Sundays too. Undetermined time, but it will begin on the 20th, where I will be having my friend Astrid come on the 20th, and next week I got my friends Lee and Mike. They do their own podcast too. Excited to have them on next week, and thank you all for tuning in. We love you very much. Have a good rest of your day.